And it's time to take a look at the stories that's making headlines around the world. And for that, I'm joined here in the studio by Diptyque Laurent. Hello, Dipty.
Hey, Annette.
And we're going to start with that historic meeting between the leaders of Ethiopia and Eritrea.
Well, it certainly took everyone by surprise, in particular that embrace between Abiy Ahmed, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, who walked off his plane and embraced Isaias Afwerki, the Eritrean leader, a visible thaw in diplomatic relations after 20 years of conflict. That's also led to a restoring of a direct telephone line, and Ethiopian Airlines is set to resume flights to Eritrea. So really a significant moment. The Ghanaian paper Jelly, meanwhile, warns that this symbolic gesture does not mean that the two countries are out of the woods yet, so to speak, but the editors are paying tribute to Abiy Ahmed, the Ethiopian leader, for his progressiveness.
And as a result, The Guardian is also focusing interest on Abiy Ahmed, the Ethiopian leader.
Well, he's quite an interesting character, and he has achieved quite a lot in just a few months of rule. For The Guardian, he has, quote, electrified his country with his informal style, his charisma, his energy, earning him comparisons to Barack Obama, to Nelson Mandela. Furthermore, he has mixed Christian and Muslim heritage. He speaks all three of the country's main languages, making him really the perfect bridge between the various ethnic groups in the country. In his short time as leader, he has freed political prisoners, he's lifted restrictions on media, he's reshuffled his cabinet and fired some suspected controversial civil servants. Now, of course, it remains to be seen if his gusto will actually translate into really eradicating some of the country's pressing problems like environmental damage, unemployment, and ethnic violence.
Now, also making headlines today is the resignation of David Davis, the UK Brexit Secretary.
Well, that announcement came late on Sunday evening, and it was well after the papers had time to react to their Monday front pages. But the Daily Mail actually released a second front page, as you see here, dedicated to what they call a bombshell and massive blow. Davis's resignation throws Brexit negotiations into chaos, coming, of course, over his opposition to Theresa May's planned soft Brexit from the EU.
Now, moving on to an extraordinary story, certainly for us on the 51% team, and that is America leaving the World Health Organization in shock yesterday after opposing a resolution encouraging, of all things, breastfeeding.
The most natural thing in the world, right? And the New York Times reports that at the World Health Assembly yesterday in Geneva, the U.S. opposed a resolution put forward by the Ecuadorians on encouraging breastfeeding. Basically, the resolution said that decades of research showed that a mother's milk is always best for a baby and that we should aim to promote it over baby formula where possible. U.S. officials say it puts unnecessary pressure on women to be able to breastfeed, and this might cause problems for women who cannot, and so they opposed it. Now, when they didn't get their way, they threatened a trade war against Ecuador, who had no choice but to acquiesce, of course, sparking claims of blackmail and harassment. The resolution eventually passed only because Russia stepped in to introduce the measure, saying it's not fair for bigger countries to bully smaller countries.
It is an amazing story. Now, the French sports paper L'Equipe is, of course, focusing, hang on, what is it? Yes, the World Cup semi-final match between France and Belgium.
That's right. In particular, the paper has a pretty interesting front page today. They're pitting on the left, as you see there, French coach Didier Deschamps against the man on the right, who's Thierry Henry. We loved each other so much, the paper says. In fact, Thierry Henry is assistant coach for the Belgian team, but Thierry Henry and Didier Deschamps actually played together in the 1998 French team that won the World Cup that year. 20 years on, they'll go from teammates to adversaries for one night.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that too, where team players from Real Madrid and others have suddenly found themselves playing on the opposite side. So it's a common theme, isn't it, with this World Cup tournament. Now, finally from you, British comedian Sacha Baron Cohen, famous for his alter ego Borat and Ali G, has a new series coming out. Now, this is something I certainly will be waiting for.
Well, it was bound to happen, right, with the state of politics the way it is, in particular in the U.S. Sacha Baron Cohen has an upcoming show called Who is America? And it's presumed to be, we don't know much about it, but it's presumed to be a parody of Donald Trump and his governance. Donald Trump, who, by the way, he interviewed as Ali G way back when in the early 2000s. It didn't go too well at the time. But, you know, this is a different political era, so it remains to be seen how well his style of comedy will translate today. In any case, it's clear that his interviewing chops are still there. He managed to get former U.S. President and torture advocate Dick Cheney to sign a waterboarding kit. That's basically an empty pitcher. It's a joke. Let's take a look.
Dick Cheney, is it possible to sign my waterboard?
Sure. That's the first. That's the first time I've ever signed a waterboard.
Oh boy, yes. I'm going to look forward to see that. Thanks for that, Dipti. And of course, if you want to take a look at the stories that she's just been talking about, you can head to our website, thatbeamfrance24.com.